The Gospel of Gold by G.S. Lewis. Chapter 12, Where Lines Are Drawn. For the rest of the day, Gold restored the tails to Azalea's slowpoke population until the very last one was whole. The onlookers in his audience had eventually begun to participate more, first to ask who he was, and then how he had come by his miraculous healing power. Gold shared his story with them as freely as he had done with Marina and Jinichi, and this time with far less apprehension about what they might think. The claim of personally knowing both Ho-oh and Lugia somehow didn't seem so far-fetched, coming from somebody who was literally generating matter out of nothing before dozens of witnesses. "This isn't about me," he kept reiterating. "If anything, it's about knowing our place in the world. I'm still learning too, you know." The sun had just begun to sink when the crowd parted for two figures. The first, Gold recognized as Old Man Kurt, whose wrists were bound together in plastic cuffs. The second was a short, androgynous person with purple hair, flanked by a butterfree and a beedrill on either side. Gold guessed him to be a man, but he could hardly be certain. "What's going on here?" asked the purple-haired man as he stopped to look around. "There have been rumors flying all day, and I've been unfortunately detained until now." Kurt gave him an offended, sidelong glare. "You've been detained?" he grumbled, loud enough to hear. "That's my line." Nearly everyone in the crowd had already begun to speak, drowning out the last part of Kurt's retort. The purple-haired man held up his hands for silence, and the people quieted down after a few seconds. However, two little girls piped up, their twin voices carrying enough volume that the newcomer looked at them. "Mayor Bugsy!" one cried. "You should have seen it!" exclaimed the other. "Amy! Mimi! So there you are!" Bugsy, the mayor, scowled. "Why weren't you at the gym? Don't you know I'm accountable for you?" "Sorry, but we saw that the slowpoke were back," responded, presumably, Amy. "And this guy gave them their tails again," added, presumably, Mimi. "Gave their... what?" The mayor's face was the very picture of confusion, and he looked hard at Gold. "So, you're the one I've been hearing about who's doing magic in town?" His eyes narrowed in understanding. "And more besides." Gold didn't like the look the mayor was giving him. He was about to reply when yet another little girl's voice piped up. This time it was Maisie, Kurt's granddaughter, who burst from the crowd to her grandfather's side. "Why did you tie his hands together?" she demanded, with all the fury of a small but protective child. "Grandpa's a hero! He chased Team Rocket out of town when nobody else would!" "He assaulted people with a hammer," the mayor started, but voices in the crowd didn't let him finish. "They assaulted our Pokémon with knives!" Old Kurt only spoke to them in the language they understand.
"Take those cuffs off him! He's harmless to anyone who's not a scoundrel!"
The mayor's face turned pale, and he seemed to realize he'd walked into an unfavorable situation. Whatever his circumstances had been for bringing Kurt along, it had proven bad publicity for him. After a moment or two of hesitation, he glanced at his beedrill and nodded. The insect Pokémon swooped down, and with a swing of its Fury Cutter, loosed Kurt's bonds. "Union Cave is cleared," he announced in a less than confident tone. "So, all is well again, I suppose." He swallowed, then pointed to Gold. "But I do need to speak with you, newcomer." Jinichi sprang up. "Gym Leader Bugsy! Actually, I need to speak to you!" Before the mayor could object, Jinichi was in his face, soliciting him for a gym battle appointment time. Gold couldn't tell if he was doing it to buy time or if the inquiry was genuine, but Kurt was suddenly standing before him, with Maisie in his arms. The old man was now beaming with such a radiant smile that his face practically glowed, and with his free hand, he pumped Gold's up and down until it was sore.
Ha ha! What a boon you turned out to be, boy!
He said merrily.
First, you healed my back. Then, when they took me in for questioning, you healed the whole Slowpoke population. What's your name, son? It would please me greatly to make Pokeballs for a fine young fellow like you.
I'm Gold, Gold replied, smiling to hide a wince as he massaged his hand. And thank you for your offer, but I don't use Pokeballs for what I do.
Oh? Then at least stay the night at my place,
Kurt insisted, nodding his head in the direction of his cottage down the road.
The worker is worthy of his wages, as the saying goes.
Well, thank you very much. Can my two friends stay too?
Certainly. A friend of yours is Gold.
The mayor was calling him, this time by name. Gold looked over to see him beckoning incessantly, his face taut with annoyance. You need to come with me, he said, in a tone of lost patience. Now, please. Gold looked from him to the crowd to Jinichi, who was now standing by Marina with a cowed expression, to Kurt, who raised a fist in solidarity, and finally back to the mayor. Okay then, he said. Lead on.